How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another review here at Big Gold Belt Media of How I Met Your Father with Damien G. This is episode 6, known as Stacey. Now, in this episode, we kind of get a little bit more backstory regarding the characters in terms of their dating likes, dislikes, their dating almost traumas, because I feel like we go through a lot of different relationship and dating traumas with each character. From Sophie to Sid to Jesse, Ellen, Valentina, as well as Charlie. As I did in my previous reviews, I'm just going to intersect stories based on the characters. I'm not going to go kind of in sequential or chronological order. I'm basically just going to talk about each character and what they played or how they played in this episode here. How I Met Your Father on Hulu, set to drop 2/15. Happy Valentine's Day, by the way, everybody. If you have someone special, or even if you don't, you are loved, you are appreciated, and you rock. So that's my little Damienistic spiel for you all. So Sophie and Drew go on a couple's date with Sid as well as Hannah. And during the course, or right before this happens, Hannah, I want to say accidentally, calls Sophie Stacey, which was Drew's ex. Slip of the tongue, what have you, mental freeze, same name, similar name, what have you. And she starts freaking out. So immediately she freaks out with Valentina, or to Valentina, who is her ride or die, as we all know. And now Sophie wants to find out every inkling, thanks to the internet, of the relationship of those two. She wants to see what the relationship was between Drew and Stacey. And Valentina, to her credit, because she can find anything, because she's that girl, the culmination of Robin and Barney, I'd say, finds information on Stacey, gives it to Sophie. Sophie starts to freak out, what have you. And this is before they go on their romantic getaway with Sid as well as Hannah. So this is where it gets weird, because what we find out is that Sophie and Drew haven't had sex. This is very reminiscent of Ted and Victoria not having sex for the first 3 months of their relationship. So apparently now Sophie wants to score with Drew and Drew wants to score with Sophie. So what better way to do this than a romantic getaway where we can flourish our burgeoning relationships and just have a whole bunch of coitus. But of course, because Sophie's in her own head, she sabotages it at every turn. Conversely, we got Jesse and Ellen basically winding up dating the same person at 2 different days, where Charlie and Ellen are hosting a Valentine's get together or like a couples party or what have you, similar to when who was it? Was it Lily and Marshall? Yes, when they decided to host Barney and Robin. And basically Charlie likes to host, but then he realizes everything in New York is expensive because a bartender's salary does not pay for the finest cheeses, my friend. Maybe you should have gone with the Gouda, like How I Met Your Mother did. But what winds up happening is that Jesse goes on a date with someone he met at a coffee shop, where Ellen also went on a date and hooked up with the same person. And we find out later in the episode that when Ellen dropped her off for the next day at the coffee shop, Jesse was in line with her. And we find out that Jesse picks her up out the line after Ellen drops her off. And then when Jesse brings her over to the get-together, Ellen recognizes the girl and tells the girl, "I'm not going to tell my brother if you don't." And that's really awkward, because how are you going to go on a date with someone that your sister slept with? Which turns out she is the girl in question, whose name I forget. I'll call her Blah Blah for you How I Met Your Mother fans. Blah Blah Part 2 basically is a conservationist, save the animals, save everybody and their mama, meet his murder kind of person, a little bit of a zealot in this episode. And basically what happens is Jesse's trying to have a good date, to get back out there, and it's not a good match. We know this, we see it unfold, but he's trying his hardest, because we also find out he actually secretly wants Sophie. Duh. We know. Duh. And on the other hand, we have Charlie and Valentina, who we find out Charlie has made a habit of dating women from multiple countries and moving to be with those women in those countries, which Valentina finds out by looking through his passport and asking him about her past exes and vice versa. He hates hearing about her exes. She says she doesn't care about his exes until she finds out that Charlie went traveling all around the globe to be with other women. And she storms out, she gets mad, she throws a hissy fit. So what I'm seeing from Valentina's character is she's okay as long as it benefits her. Talk about her dating life, as long as her live radio, kids, live video. As long as it benefits her, she's okay with it. But if it doesn't benefit her and it affects her, it's a problem. So she's pretty much the one that says, it's okay for me to get away with stuff. But if you're trying to get away with the same thing that I'm doing, I now have a problem with it. Go figure. Kind of toxic. But then again, I feel like this whole coupling is toxic. So they might very well be the Barney and Robin of the group. Again, hilarity ensues, but in my case, not much hilarity. It's more of a, oh no. So I can sum up this episode really quickly by saying 3 words. I am sex. Because Sophie is hiking herself up to have sex with Drew for the weekend because they obviously have not had sex. And of course, she has delved into the realm of what Stacey like, and they found pictures of Stacey. A lot of stuff is happening. A lot of craziness is happening. It just shows dating nowadays where people kind of lose their ish. They lose their shit in terms of, does this person like me? They're really insecure. People are trying to hide their past from their partner because they don't want to lose that partner. So a lot of dating tropes are happening, and I feel it's a lot of the extreme dating that happens in this episode. Because again, I am sex as she kind of tries to pump herself up, as Sophie tries to pump herself up to have sex with Drew. And then we find out Drew is keeping dating secrets as well, because the resort or the weekend getaway they've all gone on, he's already been there with Stacey, but he doesn't tell Sophie that. Sophie finds it out. And then she tries to get him to admit that she has been there with Stacey, in which he tries to play dumb. And then we find out later in the episode, he does admit to Sophie, yes. Because Sophie actually winds up, I believe, DMing Stacey about the meetings with Drew, or the times they hung out at this said place, where apparently Drew knows everything, according to Sophie, and he's trying to play dumb. And then when it comes to Sid, apparently we find out that he bought the bar without consulting Hannah, when they promised each other that every big decision they would make, they would consult each other, and he didn't do it. He kind of just met this mentor and said, YOLO, and I'm going to buy a bar. Like all of us, we said, hey, let's buy a bar. And in his case, he bought a bar because he realized med school was not for him, because that's where he met Hannah. But he realizes that med school was not for him, so he wanted to be a bar owner. But we find out that Hannah did not greenlight this. She felt some type of way that he didn't want to converse with her. So one thing led to another, and they wind up fighting. So it winds up in this episode, everybody winds up fighting. Sophie's psycho. Valentina's a bit of a control freak. Charlie likes to move around the country for all these women. Jesse and his sister dated the same person. And Sid makes decisions without consulting his fiance. Typical dating tropes. Where's the humor? Again, I'm not trying to be the bearer of bad news of these episodes, but where was the jokes? I didn't find any of this funny. I found this sad. I found, wow, dating in 2021 and 2022 post-pandemic is really freaking sad. If you have to go these leaps and bounds on social media to either hide your relationship or play dumb or stalk people on the internet to see if you have one up on the person that they used to date. And it's a lot of game playing. And I, for one, am just thinking, this is a lot of work, man. This is a lot of work just to be in the dating market. But that's my own personal opinion. Like I said, Charlie's a serial dater. Sophie's psychotic. Sid doesn't consult his fiance. Valentina likes her cake, but doesn't want other people to eat their cake too. So basically, everybody is at war in their own little dynamics. It turns out, like I said, Jesse goes out with blah blah at this dinner party that both Ellen and everyone else is at. It doesn't go well. He's forcing it. It turns out he likes Sophie. Duh. Ellen, again, her whole quest is to date as many people after her divorce as humanly possible. Charlie wants to make it work with Valentina. We find out at the end that Charlie's willing to burn his passport because even though he tried to make it work with women and he's a serial dating traveler, he only wants to do it with Valentina. And Valentina admits she's in love with Charlie in a nauseating fashion. And let me tell you from personal experience, I've had the nausea come up at some point, telling someone that I love them and feeling some type of queasiness because I didn't expect it to come out of left field. And I feel like that's what Valentina is going through. And as the episode concludes, Sophie and Drew kind of amend each other, saying, hey, I'm sorry, I was kind of stalking your ex-girlfriend. I'm sorry I didn't tell you about the times I went here with Hannah. And then he basically lets Sophie know that that Drew and Stacey went here before. And basically what winds up happening, he admits that Stacey was more interested in taking the perfect Instagram photo than actually enjoying the moment and being in the relationship. So a lot of weird stuff happens. A lot of weird things just coincide in this episode. So let me consult my notes real quick about if I left anything out. I am sex. That's one thing that I took from this episode. There was a Ja Rule Fyre Fest joke. Good job there. Who doesn't know about the Ja Rule Fyre Fest where, Valentina and Charlie love each other. They admit to that. Sophie's never been in an actual relationship. Charlie is a serial dater. Sophie DMs Drew's ex. Valentina gets her just desserts because she's hurt that Charlie's a serial dater for other women in other countries, even though Charlie admits he does not want to hear about Valentina's past dealings and shenanigans. So it's not good for the goose if it's not good for the gander, but too bad it blew up in your face. And like I said, Sid does not like to consult Hannah in making big choices. Everybody rectifies it at the end of the episode because it's a sitcom. My biggest complaint is where the jokes. They're not that funny. I'm trying, kids. I'm trying, everybody, but it's just not that funny. I do like Drew. I think he's corny, but in a good way. I think he's the Ted Mosby. If he would have been like an actual main character, I would have liked to have had him as a main character. And everybody's just trying to find their way in the dating market, the dating realm. Basically, again, like I said, Jesse admits that, which we already knew, he's in love with Sophie. As I said, Ellen and Charlie are trying to make the best of a bad situation. With the current dinner party, it going to shit. Ellen wants to date as many people as possible to find her way. Charlie's still trying to make it as a bartender. But that pretty much sums up the episode. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Am I off base? Because I know a lot of people on YouTube enjoy my reviews because I'm trying not to compare it anymore to How I Met Your Mother. And if I'm viewing this as a standalone series, I would have tuned out a long time ago. I'm hoping there's more Easter eggs that go back to How I Met Your Mother, but it's not working for me so far. But that's what I think. Let me know in the comments below. Here at Big Gold Belt Media, I am Damon G. Find me on all your social media platforms at Damon G Show. And if I had to give a rating to this, which you all know I hate to do, I'm going to call this a C- D+. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let's talk about it. Damon G Show. This is Damien over here at Big Gold Belt Media, talking about How I Met Your Father, episode 6. We'll talk to you next time.